Okay, good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Trustees, Village of Monroe, for Friday, April 28th. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we just get into the actual budget, I just want to bring up a couple of things to bring light to both the people at home and people in the audience and to the board themselves. So the budget process, which goes on every year, takes place from February forward, certain dates, and there's a lot of pieces that are involved in that, including my treasurer, my clerk, and the board. We had a situation where at Wednesday's meeting, we had a split vote, and I chose not to vote or abstain from the vote. As a result of that, the tentative budget falls back by law to be adopted. What I did not know was that that tentative budget was before the budget presented to the public on April 18th. I had no idea, albeit the fact that I should have an idea, and should have known, I didn't, that there are dates that memorialize the budget process. And there are two in March and then in April. In our case, where historically, every time we ever had a budget in a fiscal year, the treasurer would run the basic meeting and prepare presentations by different departments and so forth. And as a result of that, then we would take information from that and she would populate it into the budget or proposed budget. On March 31st, I had gotten such a budget on a budget preparation form, and I began to mark it up with markings throughout the entire document, and I shared that with the board. By no means did I suspect that that was the tentative budget as we were working through it. This wouldn't be something you would send to the public or prepare for the public. And anybody interested in seeing it, welcome to come in and see the budget. My lines and my words and everything are marked up across the whole entire document. The date of that document is 3/31. So from there we move forward. When you look at the dates I've given the board, there were two dates that were significant here. March 20th and March 22nd, where each department would have presented their budgets or wish lists, whatever you want to call it, for the new fiscal year 23-24. As a result of that, we had several meetings as a board, and that was what I knew to be the work on the preliminary budget. In fact, yesterday, one of our trustees had determined that, in fact, it was March 31st, based on a calendar date in the Town Handbook or in the state of New York under village law, I suppose?
It's village law.
Village law, okay. So whatever those dates are, we just began the process, in fact. So having said all that, I just want to clear that that was where we were, why it happened, under no other circumstance or term or otherwise was anything done to mislead the public or this board on this work. So last week, or this past Wednesday, we did the budget. It was voted down. We went back to the tentative budget. In your packets, I also included, because even the clerk at the time said she had published what she thought was the tentative budget, and she noted it on our website, tentative budget. So that budget that she posted for the first time and the only time, I believe, am I correct?
Yes.
Was the tentative budget that reflects the work that we voted on this past Wednesday. Okay. So at this time, I do realize that if that's a concern or a question, and I go back to the March 31st budget, all the work that we've done goes away. And there is a significant increase in the tax and so forth. So What I'd like to do is to take the budget from Wednesday that we voted down or didn't pass, didn't adopt.
You didn't, well, there was no action at all taken.
Okay. And I would like to bring it back to the board because I do want that budget to be adopted. It was fiscally very, very responsible. It was a total of 1.1% increase over last year. And I want to have the board consider that this evening and put it to a vote. Trustee Burns, do you have any vote?
I don't have anything to add now.
Trustee Farrar?
What was the preliminary budget? What was the raise? How far off were we?
About 7.5%.
7.5%.
Yeah.
Would have been the increase in taxes.
Right. You good?
Yeah.
Mr. Farrar?
Yes. Had you known the other night that the tentative budget would have taken effect, would you have voted?
The tentative budget, I had.
This budget, from March 31st,
Right.
had you known this would be the adopted budget by default,
Right.
would you have voted the other night? Yes or no?
No.
You wouldn't have voted.
No. Why would I have voted? That's an 8-point-something% increase. Why would I vote for that when I had a 1-1 on the table?
No.
No.
You're not following me. This budget was brought before the board the other night. You decided not to vote. You recused yourself. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay? On this budget, did you know by recusing yourself that this would actually be the budget?
I
That
thought
would have
this
we-
would be the adopted budget. This.
Well, it's this by default.
I agree. I hear what you're saying. But I didn't know that.
But had you known this, had you known what you know tonight, had you known this Wednesday night, would you have voted?
No.
You would have still recused yourself.
Yep.
So-
I would not have agreed with that information. I didn't even know it. You were the only one that knew it evidently in the whole room. So I would not have.
Does anybody else have this book?
We understand it. I got it. Message is well received. I get it. But you have to
You're
understand.
not answering the question.
I am. No. Should not have.
So you wouldn't have voted for this budget the other night if you knew this was going to be the budget that was going to take over. So you would not have voted for this, the 1.18,
This one here included my raise. That
That's
was a
correct.
bone of contention in this board.
and it's still a bone of contention.
Fair.
It's still a bone of
I
contention.
got it. But the point is that I'd rather not be part of it. And I thought this was the budget that would have been adopted.
But, again, had you known Wednesday night that if you voted this down, this was going to be the budget, would you have voted?
No.
Okay, that's all I got to say, thank you.
Marty, anything?
Yeah, everything you said made sense. We put all that work into it, so we weren't going to be dealing with all that was not whittled down. So we thought we were presenting a really clean budget with the bone of contention being your salary, and that was my understanding.
And we did put a lot of work into it, but I think the problem with the bone of contention was, and somebody brought up negotiations the other day, which I didn't think really was appropriate, but there wasn't a negotiation. It was just,
Sorry, there was.
I didn't feel that there was a negotiation. It was, this is the salary all along, and then all of a sudden, it was something different. And it's hard, like, we all have a job, we all took an oath, and it's not always easy voting, I was told one time, make sure you vote with your heart, because one time I felt like something I voted on, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I really went with my heart, and I've decided I am my own person. We all have our own minds, and we need to vote the way we feel. And it's not always easy, but it's our job to do, to vote yes or no. So, yes, a lot of time was put into it, a lot of time away from our families. I'm actually had to run back from what I was doing with my family to be here tonight because of what happened. And it's not easy. And I know we're all busy, but family does come first.
Yeah, if you were referring to my parallel between our work together with Chief Guzman and how there's going to be some work involved with where his salary's going to end up. And Neil's situation, I can see now a difference. I kept saying, you know, I'm not getting where you're finding a difference between the two. They both have large salary increases. So now I get a little better feel for where you're coming from.
Okay. I think the bottom line for me is the buck does stop with me. That's the bottom line, okay? I can tell you next year's budget, this won't happen, none of it. It won't happen. I'm way too easy in getting things accomplished, and that's on me. It's a habit, it's a bad habit, but there was never, ever the opportunity to defraud or to diminish the work here or to do anything untoward or anything other than getting a good solid budget. Now, if I had known, Trustee Carl just asked me, if I had known that that was the default budget, now I've just laid out to my residents over almost a 9% increase. Whereas we work very hard on a 1.1. I want to see that adopted. That work is important. That to me is more important than anything. And as far as negotiations, I won't argue that. If there was something that had to be done out there, then I just felt it wasn't my place. Maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe I felt it wasn't. So I tried to stay out of it. And as you know, the first time we did it after the comp meeting, I recused myself and left the building. Second time it happened, I wasn't in the building, I was outside.
Well, I think it just should have been discussed
Well,
in March,
right.
or put on paper in March.
You know, for many years, I've been around here a little while. For many years, all the budget workshops were done in February. We worked our way through February to pare it down, to get to that March 20th or there close, to present the mayor to present it to the board. For many years, it was always the workshops were done in February.
So while I understand that, appreciate it, I can tell you that in the history of my time here, this speaks for itself right here, Monday, March 20th. The former treasurer who was here has already left the building, basically, you know, and that's the date she got in place for the presentation of the budgets.
Yeah, because last year, I think it was the 29th of April last year, if I'm not mistaken. And we
It was late. It was late. The year before was probably late too. But at the end of the day, on or before May 1st, we have to have an adopted budget. So whatever it gets us to get there has produced a 3.52% budget increase over the past 5 budgets. That takes work. And we achieved that work. Albeit not in the smoothest ways, not in the most complete ways, not in the most NICOM approved manner, but it was done. But nothing else because of it was amiss. So I want the board to know that. So I'd like to see this budget come up for a vote.
If it fails again, what will the tax increase do? If you
I
go
think it's
back to that.
9.1,
if it-
8.9. If we go back to that tentative budget, if that's the number, the clerk posted the tentative budget.
And sent me the
But-
tentative budget, but it was the one marked 418.
Right. And that's what she knew to be the budget, but based on the law, March 31st.
I just want to say anything. The law says that you hand the village clerk the tentative budget. At a public meeting, the village clerk presents the tentative budget that is supposed to be the 31st of March. If you miss that date, you've missed the date. You missed it last year, obviously, from what Trustee Carl said. You probably missed it many times. So then what is the tentative budget? In my opinion, it's the budget that everybody thinks is the tentative budget. I thought was a tentative budget. The clerk thought was a tentative budget. The public, it was published as a tentative budget. So you missed the deadlines. That's on, Mr. Mayor, I guess, that's on you.
It's all right.
Okay, it's on you. So now, you have what's in front of you, a choice between the tentative budget, if you're actually going by the absolute March 31st date, which, when I was sent it today, or a couple days ago, it's marked, it's all marked up. So I don't know, but that has some increase. The budget that ended up on the 18th, that has another increase. So I just want to remind the board that your job as the chief financial officer and everybody on this board, you have a fiduciary duty to the village. So take that, think about that. You might need to fix the process, but tonight's vote is about that duty. It's not about his salary, it's not about your salaries, it's not about how off the whole process was. So NICOM's great, the law is great, but if every village that made a mistake or failed to meet a certain deadline, if their budgets were invalidated because of that, the whole village would not be able to function. It's just like, you don't raise the debt ceiling, we default as a nation. The state budget is always a mess, so it's not unusual for these types of things to happen. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay, that's fine, but at the end of the day, if I have to do what I have to do, that will be the course of business for the rest of the time as I'm mayor. That'll be the course of business, no ifs, ands, or buts. I took my leave from my treasurer, and I just did my business. And I've been doing that since I've been on the board, and I've never seen any issue about it. You've been on with me for a long time. I mean, we finish up late, probably every year that you've been on the board.
Yeah.
Not late where it'd be on May 1st, but we finished up late. And I never thought about it, never was told about it, never thought about it. But that doesn't excuse the fact that I didn't read the NICOM handbook says this is what you gotta do by this date. I get it, I get it. So. But if you don't want to do the tentative budget, I don't want to do the tentative budget. I want to pass the budget that we presented on Wednesday.
It makes sense. That's what we all thought it was.
Are we prepared to do that?
Call for the vote.
Is there any other issues that you have?
No. I read a statement.
You did, outside of that though, because what I don't want happening, Trustee Carl, is I don't want tomorrow some new news coming out, or some new line in the thing. I'm sorry?
What new news?
I don't know. I don't want any more. I want to pass it. I want to move on.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, I need a motion on this vote.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Call the question, Trustee Berenger?
Berenger, nay.
Trustee Ferraro?
Ferraro, yea.
Trustee Carl, no.
Trustee O'Connor, yay.
Mayor Dwyer, yea.
Should have done that Wednesday night.
You have to understand, I know that I could have done it, but you know what it's like to have something put on your back, like as if I'm taking care of myself? And everybody had a hand in that, including yourself. You had a hand in that. You knew that this was going to come up, but you let it happen. You could have came to me and said, excuse me, let's go into executive for a second. You could have said, hey, by the way, this is going to be an 8.9% budget. This is the one that we had on the records. I didn't know that. I don't want any part of it. I stayed out of negotiations for my salary. Why do you think I did that?
It's my fault, right?
It's not your fault, it's my responsibility. And I take full responsibility. What I don't want is to have something happening tomorrow or the next day. I want to move this village forward. 1.1 penny on the dollar.
No, you don't have
And
to
we're
yell.
doing all the work that goes with it.
You don't have to yell. I hear you.
I'm not yelling.
Bad word.
All right, I need a motion to close the public meeting. Anybody in the public, by the way, I'm sorry.
Anybody want to speak?
I'd like to know why you could not negotiate the salary before the meeting started.
So two things. Number one, that was never brought to me until this morning. Trustee Carl mentioned it. Otherwise, he said he's a no-vote. That wasn't something I felt comfortable doing, Paulette. I felt that if anybody's going to have these conversations, I can't be negotiating my own salary. I was troubled by that. I didn't bring up the price to begin with. I didn't bring up the contract amount. I didn't bring up the
Well,
salary.
why couldn't the other trustees
I
negotiate
can't answer that. I
today
can't-
before this meeting?
They could have.
Negotiate just that issue.
I can't speak to that.
I mean, you can't bring it to vote, you can't put it up as a referendum. Why do we even have a public hearing? Because you don't listen to us. Well,
Well, we
two
do.
trustees did listen to you, but I've been in negotiations, I've been a union delegate and everything, and this one issue could have been negotiated before the vote.
I won't argue that. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit in my own negotiation about my own
I'm not
salary.
saying, but the other four could have sat and negotiated this out. I mean, I've been to these last 3 meetings. It's like a joke. It's a joke.
Well, listen, I respect your opinion on the matter. The fact of the matter is this board has done incredible work over my tenure as mayor.
And nobody has said they haven't.
Oh, you are now, you're calling it a joke. I don't understand that.
This issue, this one issue.
I get it, but we're not
I'm sure
perfect.
there's
We're
more than
imperfect.
one person on the board that felt that the salary could have been negotiated amongst the four of them. Too late now because you're already voting on it.
So, right, too late now. So let's go about the people's business. Let's do the work that we need to do, continue doing what we're doing. It's good work, and we'll continue to do so. I mean, you want me to put a rope around the chandelier and hang myself? I don't know what you're expecting here. We do a lot of things here, Paulette. I come down, I take care of your problems down the block. I make sure that you're being dealt
I
with.
told you how I felt in an email.
Yeah.
No, I don't want you to hang yourself. I said, I feel that you're still a good person. I
Just a lousy mayor,
I didn't say that in my notes.
whatever.
I didn't say
I'm
you were
good.
a lousy
All right,
mayor.
full good. Listen, I do what I do. I work for this village very, very hard. I don't do anything unethical. I don't do anything untoward anybody about anything. And I resent anybody that does it, suggest it about me. I won't have it. I won't. I'll fight my tooth and nail about it. It doesn't matter who it is and what it is. I will do that. I wasn't raised like that, and I am not like that. Whether it's a surprise, it's sudden, whatever. As of April 3rd, I didn't even know I wanted to do it. But as I started to see all these things that are coming up and coming my way, I mean, I put 5 years into it. I watched this thing go from something I was able to manage in 18 to now where it's ridiculous what we put up with here. Between lawsuits and business and contracts, and it's overwhelming. You know what that's like during the day when you're trying to do your work, your business?
Yes,
And
I
then
do. I was on the school board, as I've mentioned numerous
Okay.
times, for 6 years.
Right.
It's a lot of work. It's community service.
Right, and I still think I'm doing community service. I still think I do a good job of community service. Maybe not here shoveling out somebody's gutter, but I do community service. I work and do the nonprofits. I still participate on all those levels. I've just chosen that maybe it's not going to be the school board. Maybe it's not going to be that I'm going to go out there. But the Christmas festival, that's what is that? Is that part of my duty? I don't know. Cheese Fest, is that part of my duty? Where does it constitute what the mayor's supposed to do? If you read the NICOM thing and you look to see where the mayor's duties are, you'd be shocked. I'm not going to do anything anymore. I don't have to. It's not my responsibility.
That's supposed to be.
Need a motion to close.
Berenger will make the motion.
Second.
O'Connor will second.
Or question?
Berenger, aye.
Or like.
O'Connor, aye.
All right.
Yeah.